Hello and welcome, listeners. This is Joe and Ant Share a Pint, a podcast about all kinds of movies, television, and other nerdy crap that some people care about. Us, and maybe you.
Maybe.
I hope you do. I mean, otherwise it's a waste of time for you to be sitting here listening to this anyway, because that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to try and break it down on the intellectual level, the heady one, and you got the common sense one. I'm the heady one, Joe.
I guess I'm the common sense one, Anthony.
I think you're the common sense one.
I like to think so.
Yeah, you're more the common sense guy. Right now, just in case you want to, if you are of age and can legally drink and would like to join along with us, today's pint will be a Sam Adams Harvest Patch. I think it's actually, pardon me, Sam Adams Pumpkin Batch. This is actually like the final week that you can probably pick this up before they switch into all the Christmas stuff. So if you'd like to drink along with us, please pick that up today.
Alright, so what are our topics today, Joe?
Today we're actually going to be covering controversy in comic book movie casting. An interesting topic, of course. Comic book movies seem to be that one genre, and they are technically a genre. They actually go all the way back to the early 1930s. We'll cover that in another kind of episode further on. But comic book movies seem to be that one genre more than any others that just, it attracts controversy like a magnet. Now, if you've listened to my background report, you'll know exactly my personal reason why I think it attracts so much controversy. Ant, do you want to go into why you do?
Well, I think one of the big things here is that it seems like no matter how good the movie turns out, when it's still in production, everybody just wants to complain about it because there's no way to make everyone happy. The character won't look right, they cast someone who's very unexpected to play them, and the reasons just keep going, but for some reason people love to bitch until the finished product comes out, and then everyone either loves it or everyone hates it. There's almost never any middle ground with it.
That seems to be always the case. It's very divisive, almost like cult films are in that degree. I think that people are brought up with comic book characters at such a young age because there still is a nice element of writing in comic book literature that still views it as children's literature.
Oh,
so,
absolutely.
yeah, and it's always been there. That was how it was originally started, as children's literature. For those of us who are comic book fans, I mean, we do have to admit that it did at least, whether or not it still is, it did start purely as children's literature.
At the end of the day, these movies, books, shows are aimed at children, young adults.
Yeah, and I agree that really they're aimed at like the most general audience nowadays, with few exceptions. Watchmen is definitely a big example of that.
Right.
300 and the upcoming Suicide Squad, which we will go into at some point during this episode, so please stay tuned, or go ahead and skip ahead. I'm not going to give you a time, you just gotta guess. Anyway, I guess what should we start with first in this case? We should probably go over the most contentious of franchises that always seems to attract the most heat in casting. Well, there's two, actually. One is Batman, the other one is Spidey.
Right.
Spidey always attracts controversy.
Alright, well, I guess let's tackle Batman first.
Okay, let's start with the Bat. When it comes to the Bat, I think everybody starts with him pretty young, him and Spidey, and people get these images in their head from both the books and also from what they would later watch in television, particularly the cartoons, and there's these ideal pictures that actually can't be fulfilled by any human being.
Right.
And there's also it's this cognitive dissonance because you have these images in your head and you can't quite understand that they won't work in live action. The Joker cannot look like his comic book counterpart in most cases, because that doesn't work in real life.
They have tried in the past, and I'm just going to be honest, I think Jack Nicholson just looks kind of goofy.
Jack Nicholson does look kind of goofy, but I do love that movie to death, but I grew up with it, so it's much like we don't have that same bond with Christopher Reeve's Superman movies that a lot of critics nowadays who watch it do, where they will hold to those as the ideal images of Superman, like that was the perfect casting choice. We grew up with a much later version of Superman, so same thing with Batman in that case. I grew up with him, whereas I don't think you necessarily did grow up with those movies.
I watched them, but I wasn't a Batman fanatic growing up.
Fair enough.
I was definitely leaned more towards Marvel when I was a kid.
Right.
So I grew up on the Saturday morning cartoons. I definitely watched the Batman animated series. Wasn't as big of a fan as a lot of other people were.
Right.
I much more lean towards the superpowered characters.
Spider-Man.
Exactly. I can definitely appreciate Batman now, and I really enjoy his comic book line now. But when I was younger, wasn't that big of a fan of him. So I definitely watched those movies. I watched them with my dad a couple times. But that was about the extent for me when it comes to the Bat growing up.
When it comes to the Bat, he was probably my favorite growing up. I started with the movie in '89. Like, it was made 2 years after I was born. Like, I was born in '87, so you can see right there, like, I was shown at a young age. Even though it wasn't billed for children, at the end of the day, we saw it as kids. And then, of course, I moved on to the animated series, and then when it came to comics, if I had comics, it was probably going to be Batman comics, and I was given, like, sparing editions here and there because I was kind of an ADD kid, so I couldn't really follow it.
Well, I think that's how everyone's comic collection were when they were kids, because you kind of just got whatever mom and dad decided to pick up for you.
Yes.
So you never got to finish an actual storyline.
No. But you're kids.
Yeah, exactly. You didn't need to. You saw Spider-Man beat up Doc Ock in the issue, and that's fine. You didn't know what happened. You didn't need to know what happened before, what happened after.
We were like in a different age too, where parents had stopped giving out. Well, not parents, pardon me, but where parents had stopped subscribing to the monthly mail home lines, where like our forebears in the '60s and '70s would get. Where they would actually have them sent to them at home, or they'd go out to the newspaper stands on a weekly basis and go grab them. We didn't have that.
No.
So we didn't see, like, the stories that would just go on. But, yeah, the Batman franchise. I brought up in the background in that report Michael Keaton. He was probably the earliest controversial comic book movie casting choice that I could find. And I scoured, but he's, like, the original. I blame the internet. Because there's no internet, nothing could really be controversial. What did you think of Keaton?
I mean, I thought that he did an alright job, and one big thing that I'm going to talk about tonight is that a lot of the comic book movies, really before Iron Man came out, I think that the directors and writers didn't know what they could or couldn't do with the movie.
When it came to being faithful, right?
Yeah. So, considering that movie came out, and you said 89, 90?
89.
Yeah. So, considering when it came out, I think it did great for its time, because that was one of the first real attempts at, a major motion picture based around a superhero.
Right. Before that, you had Superman, of course, but Superman was really the only one. Yeah. There was only Superman movies. There weren't a whole line. I mean, there was crappy ones like that Captain America one that starred Red Brown, but we don't like to talk about that in this podcast.
Everyone just tries to pretend that those ones don't exist.
Like Turkish Spider-Man.
So I think that he did a good job as Batman, but as I said, he did a good job for his time. I think if you were to compare him to the later portrayals, I don't think he really holds up.
So, I mean, I think he definitely holds up when you compare him to the other 90s portrayals. George Clooney was just being George Clooney. He didn't even care to portray Batman. But that's like the least of that movie's concerns, and we'll talk about that another time when we do a Batman retrospective. Nice to see you, Batman!
Oh, that'll be fun.
Oh, I know it will. And Val Kilmer was adequate. He wasn't, like, great. Keaton actually was probably the only one of them to really try to make a distinction between Bruce Wayne and Batman. And he changed his voice subtly, and I wish that Christian Bale had taken a few notes from Keaton because he needed to understand subtlety.
Yeah.
But this is how Batman talks.
Well, I think one thing that really stands true is that if you're an actor playing a superhero, you don't need to really give an amazing performance because it's the character that sells, not your portrayal of them.
I agree. And that usually works. I mean, Bale was he was a better Bruce Wayne than Batman. He was better Bruce Wayne.
I think that he did alright. He wasn't great. He's definitely easy to make fun of.
Yeah.
And, yeah, those movies have a lot of flaws in them, definitely. But that's because they've been out for years, and you've had so many chances to sit there and nitpick pieces of them. But overall, like, you need to think back to the first time you saw it. The first time I saw The Dark Knight, I absolutely loved it. As a little bit of time went on, I started to notice certain things that, you know, I really wasn't that fond of. But the first time I saw it, it was amazing. And I think that's what really counts a lot of times. It's all about the first experience.
And I do think that I still think it's amazing, but just for what it attempts to do, not so much for what it is.
Right.
But then again, I said that Superman Returns is an underrated movie, so sue me. You know, I like the weird avant-garde stuff sometimes. Okay, so when it comes to Keaton or Bale, which would you really prefer?
I mean, I guess I'd have to go with Keaton just because at the end of the day, you really can't get past that Batman voice.
Right, with Bale.
That was, I mean, it wasn't nearly as bad in Batman Begins.
No.
And I'm not totally going to fault Bale because at the end of the day, it's up to the director to catch things like that and correct things like that, not the actor.
I do think that Nolan might have thought that was a good decision at some point, which, you know, like, for all of our love of Christopher Nolan in the Cinephile-scape, or for all of our hate of Christopher Nolan in the Cinephile-scape, because it's the internet after all, and you can't have anything just be good. It's gotta be either or fandoms, man. Anyway, for all of that, I do think that it was ultimately Nolan's decision to make Batman sound like he had cancer.
Absolutely.
Or that he was trying to audition for Death Clock as the new lead singer. So, one of those decisions. Keaton was just right when it came to them. He definitely tried to make a distinction between how Bruce Wayne talked and how Batman talked. And his Batman would just kind of, like, sneer at things.
Well,
very subtle.
I said a few minutes ago that I don't think he did as good of a job as the people that came later.
Right.
And I'm actually going to correct that statement by saying that I don't think anyone has properly portrayed the character right yet. Which is
I will accept that.
I am very excited to see Ben Affleck give it a shot because despite all the horrible things people said about him when it was first revealed that he was going to be the new Bruce Wayne, I was excited. I think that he is a good actor, and I'm really excited to see what he brings to the table.
I think with Affleck, a lot of people were thinking all the way back to the days, especially if you haven't been following Affleck's post-Gigli career. He's not a joke in Hollywood anymore.
No.
He's definitely come into his own. He went away. He got some stuff like straightened out, and by working behind the camera, he started to get better in front of the camera. I think if you've watched his performance in Gone Girl, you will shut your mouth when somebody tries to tell you, well, or at least you will shut someone else's mouth when they try to tell you that Affleck is a bad actor, because he's really good, and he's gotten so much better in his age.
I think that we might end up with Ben Affleck, it's very similar to what happened with Robert Downey Jr., where he had to go away for a while.
Yeah.
And when he came back, it was almost like he leveled up. And there you go.
And we're going to cover Robert Downey Jr. and the Avengers later on, but we're going to stick with Batman for a moment. Now, do you want to say any words about Adam West?
Not particularly.
The man, the myth, the legend.
I guess that's one thing to call him. Those are, words about him, I suppose.
I think Adam West did a great job for his time.
Yeah.
Because if you look at the comics that were coming out during Adam West's time as Batman, they actually were perfect representations of what was going on.
Because
Silver Age was silly.
The original comic books, the Silver Age era, was definitely strictly aimed at children.
Batman, we have to stop these guys. They're trying to poison our cactus fields. Oh no, if they poison the cactus fields, they're going to use them as a distraction so that we can rob the bank. Oh no.
If you were to pick up the latest action comic now, it's much darker, much grittier, a much more mature storyline than it was 30 years ago.
It's definitely them shooting for that, and it wants to attract an older audience. And in another episode, we'll definitely talk about the impact of the shift in age dynamic and age aim when it comes to comic book art and comic book writing. But for now, we'll just leave it at that. Adam West, certainly we can't say anything bad about Adam West, just because even though we view it as silly now, in its age, it was probably the perfect interpretation of Batman.
Absolutely.
It's just, for now, kids out there listening, hey, there was a time when Adam West was Batman, so just
stop and just let that sink in for a moment.
He pretty much was him. Definitely a fun guy, it always seems, so I don't really want to say too much bad about him, because nothing was his fault when it comes to the portrayal. It was just the age that he was playing them in.
Exactly.
Let's move from the Bat and move over to the Joker.
Oh.
Yeah. This is the original firefight in comic communities when it comes to actual casting decisions, because battle lines were drawn when Heath Ledger was cast. But let's go all the way back to Cesar Romero first. Like, this is definitely when we're talking about Adam West Batman, he was Adam West Batman's Joker, Cesar Romero, and he was probably the original interpretation as far as screen portrayals go.
Right.
Then I definitely think that Romero as Joker definitely worked okay when it came to BAM! Boom!
He was good for the setting that they put him in.
Yeah. I don't think anything really bad can be said about Romero, the late Cesar Romero. He worked in his show and in his series, and even though nowadays we can't really look at that as a definitive Joker, especially when we have this very rich character in front of us, I guess in some comic circles they'll use the Arkham Asylum reference and just say he'll be whatever he wants from day to day because of his insanity. So,
right.
Or super sanity, to quote Arkham Asylum.
Since we're talking about Joker, one thing that kind of bugs me, and it was almost like I had flashbacks to back when The Dark Knight was first coming out. After they revealed that Jared Leto was going to be playing the Joker in the new Suicide Squad movie,
right.
It just seemed like I was back in 2008 when Dark Knight came out.
We definitely went back in time.
Because everyone was like, oh, there's no way he'll do as good of a job as Heath Ledger, and that's not the Joker, blah, blah, blah. And that was the exact same thing everyone was saying about Heath when they announced he was going to be the Joker, talking about how he'll never be better than Jack Nicholson. And then The Dark Knight came out, and everyone was kind of like, Jack who?
Right, yeah. And I agree with that. That really was the sensibility that came around, especially since Heath got an Academy Award nomination for that role. Now, we have to remember and put it into context, the reason why Heath won that role and won that award that year is because it was posthumous. He died. So, it's a great portrayal. It is awesome, okay? But the only reason it's Academy Award winning is because Heath died. That was his final role.
Right.
I mean, you know what? Now I'm thinking about it, I want to take that back and redact it just a little bit because
I won't
really
say that he didn't deserve it, but I'll definitely say
that was a major contributing.
It definitely helped tip the scales in his favor, the fact that the actor had passed away.
It was a contributing factor.
If he had still been alive when the awards were handed out, maybe he would have got it. Maybe he wouldn't.
I think it would have just been a nomination.
Yeah.
And it would have been a, hey, here's coming down the line when you do a serious role again. We'll be getting one to you. So I think that's definitely what we're looking at there. Now we're going to talk about Nicholson. Now we're going to... Oh, you're going... Oof. This is the first point of contention here. We're going to draw our own battle lines. Ding, ding. Okay. I'll let you go first. I'll let you take the first swipe.
Alright, well, what can I say about Jack Nicholson? I'll definitely say that when the movie came out, and I'm kind of repeating what we've been saying, for the time he was really good.
Yeah.
Yeah, he definitely fit to the setting they were going for.
Yeah.
But ultimately, one big argument I have with that whole movie, and I've argued with so many people about this, because people live and die by that movie, and I just don't understand it. I'm just like, it's not a good representation of Batman. It's a pretty silly movie, to be honest. The scene when he's like spray painting the museum.
I think that was definitely trying to get his goofiness.
And
there,
the music's playing and he's dancing
Prince,
along to it. He definitely did the job good.
Yeah.
And he definitely did what the movie was going for. But once again, I feel the same way about him as I feel about Batman. I don't think that anyone has really hit the mark 100% yet on the character. He definitely hit a good an aspect of the character, but it wasn't quite a home run.
Okay, it's hard for me to disagree with that just because it is a nuanced opinion there. I will say that I think Nicholson definitely got by the sinister aspect of the Joker. I think he did that better than the silly aspect. He couldn't really marry the two all that well because he's Jack friggin' Nicholson. He's just so sinister in everything. When it came to hard, stone cold killer aspect of Joker, I think he nailed that so well.
Right.
And then the name's Joker now, and as you can see, I'm a lot happier. He was so good at that aspect, and he was his portrayal was definitely grim. It was on the grim side, even more so than Heath. Heath was on the more realistic grim. Jack was almost more like horror movie grim. He was almost like a slasher in that movie.
Well, I think that one big, the Joker that Heath portrayed, I think that was really showing the psychopath.
Right.
He just was completely just not there.
He did it for himself.
Yeah, that character, you never knew what he was going to do. You didn't know what his motives were because he was just friggin' nuts.
Right.
And he portrayed that great.
He did. And we're going to get to him in a second. I think that Jack definitely was, at the moment, he had become the defining portrayal until Mark Hamill came around. I still think Mark Hamill is the defining portrayal of Joker.
He's the absolute best.
Oh my god, he is perfect. And Kevin Conroy is the perfect Batman. There's a reason why they use their voices in the games. There's a reason.
There's a reason they keep bringing those two back over and over.
Oh my god, they're so good.
For decades now, they've been using these guys.
And that's not just me growing up with them. It's just that how great they are at portraying every aspect of those individual characters. But they're simply voice, and today is about live action. Unfortunately, another day we'll have to talk about those great, legendary men who deserve plenty of praise. Let us go to Heath. Do you remember all the controversy that came out? And people were yelling at each other over that guy from Knight's Tale.
Well, the thing about Heath was, and I said this earlier, I just remember everybody flipped out when they revealed that he was going to be the Joker.
The gay cowboy? No!
Exactly. Everybody was saying, no, bring Jack Nicholson back.
It's like Jack Nicholson is old.
Exactly. And then I remember everybody was just raging about being Heath Ledger, and then it all just stopped.
People shut their mouths.
When they revealed the poster.
Right.
And they showed the image of Heath Ledger as the Joker.
And it's like, this guy looks just freaky.
It was like, holy shit, that's the gay cowboy from that movie.
And I can't believe that's who I'm looking at right now, because look at this guy. He just looks like he's half-cocked and not really there.
Before you even went to see the movie, after you just saw what the guy looks like, you knew that he was going to be your favorite part of the movie.
Right.
You knew that right away.
From the first teaser image of him, I remember this specifically, was the evening commissioner, and he's just sitting there with his lips, and it's just like, this guy is like, what is it? It's just creepy looking what he's doing. And then we got more and more images, and it's just like this, I think we just finally found somebody who's marrying both aspects. He's got Nicholson's sinister aspect down, but at the same time he has that silly aspect that like a Cesar Romero might have had.
And he was very amusing to watch.
He was. His laugh, oh my god. Woo, 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 woo.
Right.
Then Nicholson's was just.
Or the scene where he put the pencil on the table.
Oh god,
and he slammed the mobster down.
How about a magic trick? I'll make this pencil disappear.
So, Jared Leto definitely has a lot to live up to.
He does.
That. But like I said, everyone was saying the exact same thing about Heath.
And we have another all-star actor here portraying him. I think that definitely says something about the character, at least, because Batman's got an all-star actor behind him. Joker has an all-star actor behind him. It's definitely saying something, at least, about those two or I'd probably say anybody in that franchise. Batman is probably the money-maker franchise right now when it comes to Hollywood. Everybody wants to be a Batman character. Look at the casting on the Dark Knight trilogy. It's just loaded with huge names and great actors. Not just any huge names, it's just amazing actors.
Right.
Gary Oldman! Now, don't get me wrong, I hate the muttering thing that Gary Oldman would always do as Commissioner Gordon. You'd be sitting there looking for the captions every time he's on screen. Well, I really have to... Will you speak up? And, of course, we have Delicious Fox. Now, are we doing some spelunking?
Liam Neeson as the main villain in the first one. They got Liam Neeson to play Ra's al Ghul.
God, he was so good as Ra's. I can't see anybody else playing him. Like, at first I remember the big controversy there was Ken Watanabe. And they were like, why is Ken Watanabe... I don't know if I can see him as Ra's. And he's a... Then people were pissed off because he was only in it for like maybe 30 minutes and people were just losing their minds in the middle of Batman Begins. Like, what do you mean you killed off Ra's al Ghul in 30 minutes? And then the reveal came like Henry Ducard was actually Ra's al Ghul. And I was like, oh, that is such a cool way to do the immortality aspect of Ra's. And he threw down at the end of that, too.
Yes, he did.
And that was because it's Liam Neeson playing him. I can believe Liam Neeson just beating the hell out of somebody.
Believe Liam Neeson beating the hell out of Batman?
I can definitely see that. You shouldn't have come here tonight, Bruce. Balance. You burned my house down, I burned yours.
Seems fair.
It does seem fair. Would you agree with me that that's probably the best casted franchise so far?
I'd probably say yes. I think that it's a main competitor, but it's not really fair to say because it was a solo film, not a series.
Okay.
And that would be Watchmen. I thought that the casting of
Watchmen was
absolutely perfect.
I'm gonna I'll give you that because Watchmen was really well cast.
But I don't know if you can really compare the two because Watchmen was a graphic novel, it wasn't a running series,
right?
And it was a solo movie, not a trilogy. So
I think in the long scheme of things, you actually can compare it for this alone. Watchmen has such a rabid fan base, especially the artiste comic book fans who really look at it as like this is a legitimate medium, artistic medium. They were really, really like on Zack Snyder's ass about the casting decisions of Watchmen.
Yeah.
I think the only one that they were okay with was Jackie Earle Haley as what's his name? Rorschach. I couldn't remember Rorschach's name all of a sudden. He did tell me no when I looked up, so... Hell with him. Why would I remember him? I don't think that, I forget the actor's name, but I don't agree with Ozymandias' acting choice in that, the casting choice. I thought he was a little bit too, dismissive and kind of, like, bland in his portrayal there, but...
Well, you know, the thing about him was, is that I think he did alright. This goes back to what I said before, where when you're playing a superhero, you don't need to give an amazing performance. You just need to not mess it up. I think is one of the
He didn't mess it up, yeah. I don't think he messed it up.
And
I think it definitely be said.
He was definitely a huge part of the story, but as far as his screen time, he wasn't in it nearly as Night Owl or Rorschach or even Dr. Manhattan.
So it wasn't nearly as important, or even comedian.
Yeah.
That guy that looks like Robert Downey Jr. if he, like, roided out of it.
So, I think that his performance was good enough, and you're probably going to hear me say that a lot.
It's gonna get a good enough degree, yes.
He was good enough. He was definitely a major part of the plot. Didn't have a lot of screen time, so fuck it. He was good.
So okay, maybe we'll like put our ratings down to like if they did really great, they graduated. If they were good enough, they got a GED. Okay. If they failed completely, they dropped out. Okay. All right, we're gonna move on from Bats, and because we already gave our opinion on Jared Leto there, and on Batman himself. Just a quick primer. Ben Affleck, we're both in agreement, I think, and Ant does as well, that we're actually probably gonna get surprised in a good way when it comes to Affleck. And Jared Leto, we can't say for 100%, even with some fans objecting really to those still images where it looked like the Joker had just popped out of Fast and Furious. Where it's just like, why is Joker so gangsta all of a sudden?
I think that this Joker is going to be a straight-up thug, and I am excited.
Alright. We're now going to move on to another one, again, that got a lot of controversy, and that is Spider-Man.
My boy.
We're going to particularly focus on the role of Peter Parker. Yes. Tobey Maguire versus Andrew Garfield on this one.
Alright, here are my thoughts on it. I think that looks-wise, because when you're casting someone to play a superhero, you need to go. You can go off of acting performance or go off of the look. It's hard to find someone who has both. I think that Tobey definitely had the classic Peter Parker look down, and his acting in it was all right.
Yeah, a little bit too crybaby-ish.
Yeah, definitely. you definitely had to see some not so manly tears a lot in that movie.
It's like it wasn't even occasional. By the third movie, he was just turning on the waterworks. It's like, what are you, soap opera acting right now? Spanish soap opera, no less. Maria. I think that I enjoyed him when he was playing Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I think he was having a lot. He was having a lot of fun in some cases, especially in the first movie. But I think as it went on, he just became a little bit flat. When it came to playing Spider-Man, he didn't really have any of that boyish playfulness anymore.
Right.
He definitely looked like Spider-Man from the comics, adult Spider-Man, but it's just like, I don't know, there's something like a little off.
The thing about all of those movies, and I said this earlier, is when they made Spider-Man, they didn't know what they could or couldn't do with it, so they had to make a movie that was good for everyone,
right?
Not just the fans. Where nowadays, it's like they can pull a lot more from the comics because for some reason, it's hip and cool to be in the comic books nowadays.
Yes.
So they can actually pull and just take storylines directly from the comics and use them as the plot in their movies.
Well, it's definitely hip to be square, I know that.
Yeah.
But that truism has definitely come forth. Thank you, Huey Lewis. That being said,
they couldn't do that back then.
They couldn't.
So they had to make a movie that was good for everyone.
Right. They tried to appeal to the broadest mass as possible, and that's why every single Spider-Man villain had like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing going on. If you realize that they were all talking to themselves at some point. Even Topher Grace at the end was just sitting there talking to the Venom symbiote suit. It was just so silly. I was expecting Sandman to start talking to his particles.
I half expected Dust in the Wind to start playing at the end of Spider-Man 3 when Sandman blew away.
It definitely would have been it would have been appropriate. That movie earned that there. Well, I can say this. I loved Dafoe as Green Goblin.
Oh, he was absolutely amazing.
I think he was perfect for the main man.
Green Goblin is probably my favorite supervillain of all time. I've been a Spider-Man fan my entire life. I watched the cartoon, I read the comic books, and I never really stopped.
Right.
Green Goblin is hands down my favorite villain, and when I was a kid, I think I was either 11 or 12 when Spider-Man 1 came out, and it was revealed that Green Goblin was going to be the villain. I was through the roof.
They even got a good actor, I think, for my personal favorite Spider-Man villain. That was Alfred Molina as Doc Ock.
Right.
I absolutely loved him when he came out. I especially loved that Sam Raimi went very Sam Raimi with the whole introduction to the actual tentacles.
Right.
We went straight Evil Dead in that scene. It's like we just dropped the gore out, that's all.
I feel like if they made those movies a little later...
Yeah.
If they made those movies when it was cool to be a comic book fan, then they would have been a hell of a lot better.
Yeah.
Because a lot of their casting was really on point.
Yes.
They really hammered most of the villains home pretty well. I'm not going to say all of them.
Right. But, I don't think anybody's a fan of Topher Grace's Venom.
No.
Another controversial choice there.
I don't think anyone wants to see Eric Foreman...
No.
With the symbiote.
Well, let's not forget Honest Trailer's Gopher Face. Yes.
I half expected Red to show up on that tower and threaten to put a foot in someone's
Now,
ass.
Red from That 70s Show or Red from RoboCop? With the shotgun in hand to blow off his limb.
Well, I'm gonna say I think that 70s show Red is tougher than him.
Really?
That is one tough man.
That man fought RoboCop. That's saying something. Okay, so we went into Topher Grace. Now let's go into that. Remember that horrible fan base fight over Andrew Garfield.
Well, I remember one of the huge arguments about Garfield is that he doesn't look like Spider-Man. He's hip looking, he looks cool, he's a skateboarder.
Oh my god.
He was already in good shape before he got hit by the spider, and a lot of people are just like, this guy isn't Peter Parker.
And also he was so skinny. That was one of the things. That actually set me off when I saw it. I was like, wow, this man is like rail thin.
I remember talking to you about that.
Yeah, you did.
And I ended up changing your mind.
You did.
That's what I said.
You did.
And I think that the reason why it worked for Andrew Garfield to be so thin playing Spider-Man is that it was always a little weird seeing Tobey Maguire in the Spider-Man suit doing all these acrobatics and whatnot when the guy was kind of built like a brick shithouse in that movie.
He really was.
Where it looks a lot better if you have this little guy doing all the twirls and backflips and whatnot.
I think the big thing with Garfield, and I can definitely say this now, having seen both movies, Garfield was much better than Tobey Maguire at actually playing the distressed teen part of Peter Parker. Tobey Maguire's distressed teen was, I'm going to cry a lot. Andrew Garfield's cried occasionally, but he also sulked. He also had, like, angry outbursts, and they were believable. He also yelled at people when he didn't mean to. It was just... There was a lot more depth to the angsty teenager part.
They put a lot more dimensions to his character in the remakes versus the originals.
Right.
He definitely seemed like more of an actual person instead of just like, oh, I'm watching a superhero. It felt like you were watching an actual person.
He wasn't an archetype so much. And I think the other thing is when he played Spider-Man himself.
Right.
You told me at the time, and I agree with it still, which is he got the playful wisecracker down in a way that Tobey barely did in the original series.
In the original trilogy, it seemed like they put one wisecrack in each movie just as a shout out, like, oh yeah, he still does this.
Settle down, kid. Mom and Dad are talking.
But in the newer movies, he's doing it constantly, and it feels like Spider-Man. It's like this whole hectic situation is going on, and it seems like he's just having a ball. Like he's trash talking, he's flipping around, he's saving people, and he's just making wisecracks the entire time.
Small blades, my only weakness. He just keeps going on with it. J. Jonah Jameson, can Schillinger be replaced? Look.
How did we talk about the original trilogy and not bring him up yet?
And that's why I had to. He looked the part. He sounded it. Son of a nice box of Christmas meat. Can I just get an advance? Pay for what? Standing there?
And you know what? I think that's the reason why they didn't have him in either of the newer movies. Because they knew, it's like, we can't top that. That guy was absolutely perfect.
Like, and this is, he is the rare exception when we're going to be talking about, like, good for the time or subjective. You can't get around him.
No, he was...
J.K. Simmons was J. Jonah Jameson.
He was the pearl in that movie.
He was.
He was the diamond in the rough.
And still to this day, when we're looking at that trilogy, he's the best part. Okay, so we're going to get out of those, and we're actually going to move on over to the Avengers. Now, did you know that Robert Downey Jr. was not always the first choice, not always even the wise choice to play Iron Man? Pardon me, I'm saying the first choice. That's not the... That's not really true. I think Jon Favreau always loved Downey for the part, but the execs did not. They didn't like Downey because Downey's a prima donna.
Who's gonna play him?
I don't know. I've never even heard that. I've never even the execs never released another name.
Right.
But so it really just sounded like they didn't. Anybody but Downey was what they were doing. Like, oh god, this guy with the drug problems. That guy? Who's he playing again? Iron Man? Tony Stark? Glug Glug?
And it's so weird that that's the case because out of all of the actors who play superheroes, he's one of the only ones that I can't really think of a complaint about him.
No.
Because it seems like when he's on screen, he's basically just playing himself.
Right.
When he's up there.
Any problems in his portrayal usually extend from the writers, not from Downey's portrayal itself.
Exactly.
He gets the lecherous part right, and he plays in a believable manner because this guy is just so charming. Right. And that's because Downey Jr. is charming. I can't even imagine anybody else. So when we get to our big finale part, I'm going to be straight up honest with you right now. I don't think I can find anybody else that would actually be able to replace Robert Downey Jr.
I can't think of that.
Nobody that's alive right now, or nobody that's actually of age.
Right.
How about the rest of the Avengers? I'm not really finding any big controversies throughout. I guess there was some controversy that Chris Evans was Canadian, I think.
Right. See, I don't think that anybody plays the character bad. All of them do a pretty good job, but I do think that there are actors who could have done it better.
Yeah.
One of the biggest ones for me is, and I absolutely love Chris Hemsworth. I think that he was awesome as Thor. But to be honest, I think that there is someone who could have done it better, and that someone, for me, I think, is Jason Momoa.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine him delivering the Thor lines. Chris Hemsworth, he's big, he's scary looking, but his voice, it sounds like he's trying really hard to be scary.
He's too passive.
Or Jason Momoa just sounds friggin' scary.
He does.
Watch Game of Thrones. The dude is terrifying.
I will kill the men with the icy thrones.
Yes. Just imagine him delivering those lines. Just, you want me to put the hammer down?
No, please don't.
If you want to put it down, that's okay. You do whatever you want to do.
You can keep it, man. I'm good.
Loki wouldn't have thought about betraying.
I think that's the one argument against him. Is that, well, how is Loki supposed to fight that? He's not. He just gets bigger guys, and they always fail.
So that is my big one. Like I said, I like Chris Hemsworth. He's very entertaining to watch, but I think Jason Momoa would have done a better job.
And you know what? For all my love of Chris Evans, because I really do like the guy on screen, he's very charming, and I thought he was an awesome Human Torch. Okay, I would say that maybe Chris Hemsworth might have been a better Captain America. I know, Australian, the sin, the scandal, but look at him. If you cut his hair, he does look like a good old-fashioned Iowa corn-fed American boy.
Right.
He's got that look, and he's got the build that Captain really should have.
Yeah, I was just about to say that also. Chris Evans, obviously, he's built, he's in shape, all that, but he just doesn't have that tough guy look. Where Captain America is a guy who can throw down with the best superheroes, and he was the last Avenger standing when they fought Thanos in the Infinity War, and I just don't see that being Chris Evans. I think he does an alright job as Cap. He's definitely believable, and it doesn't hinder the movie in the slightest, but someone with, a bit of a rougher look,
exterior. I think Chris Evans really would have made a great Flash, I think, and I think that's the role he missed, because he could do something boyish and funny. While we're talking about Chris Evans, let's head on over to those Fantastic Four movies. Let's start first. We're not going to even talk about the Roger Corman one, so if you're a cinephile and you're expecting us to talk about something so silly, I'm sorry. You might want to try another podcast. You might be disappointed. It's not going to go well for you. So, we're just going to start with the Fox one. The first Fox one. With that guy whose name no one can pronounce. Ion Griffith or whatever. Everyone immediately goes, huh? Jessica Alba as the Invisible Woman.
Well, she was nice to look at.
So there's a point for her.
So, there's that.
She has that. She's got the looks.
I think that if they tried to make the Fantastic Four movies now and they got her to play Invisible Woman, she would not stand up.
No.
And not think she would be good enough.
No.
Fantastic Four is a more obscure comic book, so when they made those movies, a lot of people didn't really know what to expect.
Right.
People still went to go see them because it was a superhero movie, and those were far and few between at that time.
They still were, because it was at the beginning of the big craze. So.
Yeah.
It was still a new thing.
Right.
And you gotta think that it came
was really
out...
cool to hear about a superhero movie being made at
It came out in like 05, but it was probably in production all the way back in 03 or even sooner.
Right.
I think Alba is not a good actress, period. So anything that she's really... She was okay in Sin City because she didn't have to say much.
Well, also, the way that Sin City is written is all of the acting is so over the top, but that works because it's Sin City. It's supposed to be really over the top.
Over the top, violent, and gory.
So it worked, but in a more... I don't want to say believable setting because we're talking about goddamn superheroes.
Yeah.
But in a setting that's supposed to take place in our world.
Right.
I don't think she really stands up.
No, definitely not. She wasn't all that good. And the chick that they got to play Invisible Woman, I don't remember her name right now. In this new one, this new one was just an abomination on all levels. We don't talk about that in this circle, but we're going to because there's a big controversy there, and we need to address that. But she was bad too. I think they just have a problem casting that role. Michael Chiklis is a thing.
Well, the thing is, Fantastic Four is like I've never really been a big fan of them. Like I'd be reading comic books where they crossed over into it, and it was cool having them in it, but they weren't the focus.
They really are at this point. It's like they were great back in the 60s when they were the new thing, but there's been so many that have replaced them since then, and I think that's also what the writers have trouble with. Oftentimes, it's just like, what do you do with the Fantastic Four that you can't do better with X-Men or Avengers?
Right.
It's I mean, I guess that's supposed to be like a really great unit, but so are the Avengers. So are the X-Men. The X-Men are a really great unit.
Fantastic Four, if you look at them compared to other superhero teams, their powers seem pretty limited.
Yeah.
It's like each one of them can do like one thing really well. And that's what makes them a team, but you look at what the Fantastic Four can do, and then you watch one of the Avengers movies, it's like, alright, I'm gonna go with these guys.
Yeah, I think these guys will get us like more places. They got a really great villain. Yes. They had that guy from Nip and Tuck in the first one, and he had witty lines. He was not Doom. And then they had this other guy that I don't even remember his name, and he was definitely not Doom. So they haven't cast Doom well at all so far.
Probably my biggest beef with the first actor that played Dr. Doom was he was so obviously evil from the moment you saw him. Like, I'm pretty sure the first time you see him, he's coming out of an elevator, and he's just standing there with his hands crossed in front of him, and the elevator's very dark as he walks out. Like, okay, well, here's our bad guy.
There is a statue of him out front. He's like, yes, I'm a twat. I need statues of me. Yes, we're going to head down these halls. Are there enough pictures of me on the walls? Yes, okay. Back away, everyone.
Who's looking at these? He's looking at by himself.
Are you just watching yourself? Could you just get mirrors? That'd be cheaper. So they haven't really done a good job on Doom. So we're going to talk about the big contender, Human Torch. I'm going to ignore Mr. Fantastic because neither actor who portrayed him left a really big mark on me personally. And I know miniature Jackie Earle Haley in the second Fantastic Four movie that they just made did nothing for me. He was mainly a CGI creation anyway, so Chiklis I actually really enjoyed as the Thing. Yeah. I will say that. I actually really liked Michael Chiklis. He was just campy enough, because the Thing really is a campy character. Yeah. But he portrayed enough of that, like, anguish. I think with better writing, he would have been the perfect choice. To move on, let's go talk about Human Torch. Now, Chris Evans, I think, was an absolute perfect Human Torch. He got the boyishness, he got the fun, and he got, like, a little bit of that, yeah, this guy could probably throw down in a fight or two.
And also, he's supposed to come off as kind of a hotshot douchebag.
Cocky, immature.
Let's just be honest, that's how the Human Torch is supposed to be.
The Human Torch really shouldn't, when you interpret him into modern cinema, he would probably come off as Johnny Knoxville or any of the other jackass guys.
He's kind of a jerk with a heart of gold, is what Human Torch is.
Really is. Michael B. Jordan, there was so much controversy about that, and I admit that what we're about to head into is the landmine of all landmine. This is a field, a minefield. It just goes on. Because we have to talk about race here.
We are going to tread very lightly.
Yes,
with our points here.
Because we want to make it abundantly clear, we understand and are trying to be as sensitive as possible on this topic. Michael B. Jordan's casting as the Human Torch is not bad because of his race. I do not care if he's African American. That was never the problem. The problem herein lied simply with the fact that Michael B. Jordan has one of the flattest portrayals of a spunky and lively character that I have ever seen. I do not believe that it is his fault. I think it is a failure of the directing style all the way to the top. I don't think it's his fault. So I'm actually going to say that right out. If Michael B. Jordan was cast in the original Fantastic Four movie, I probably would have loved it. Because he would be in Chris Evans' role. And he probably would have been a lot of fun and enjoyable, and I'm sure he is. But in this particular case, he did not work. But nobody worked in that movie. I want that abundantly clear. Nobody worked in that movie.
And one thing that I just didn't like was the fact that if they want to make the Human Torch an African American, that's fine, but they left his sister Caucasian.
And that is bothersome, because it's tokenism.
Yeah, exactly.
And tokenism is condescending to everyone involved. It basically feels like, hey, we know you black folk don't see a superhero that's black too often. Well, why don't we put a black guy in there? Won't you all come out? It's condescending.
Yeah, that's exactly what
to everyone.
And like I said, if they wanted to make him black, that's fine.
Make his sister black,
you need to do it with his sister, too.
Otherwise, it just seems weird and condescending. Yes, I know it happens in real life, but fiction is supposed to be more believable than real life. Okay? This is a common saying, and it's 100% true. You're supposed to be more believable. It has to follow its own logic.
Right.
And when you have, like, a randomly adopted white girl in a black family, yeah, it does seem like you just threw in a black guy for the sake of having a black guy. Why couldn't we see an attractive black woman? You know what? Let's say that again, because it doesn't have to be an attractive black woman. Why don't we just have any black woman in that role who's good at the role?
Right.
Because a woman doesn't have to be attractive to get a major role. So that's also an issue therein. And I admit I just made that mistake myself, so let me amend my statement. I think personally, when it comes to race or gender for a character's role, as long as it's not a defining characteristic of the character's role, it is okay to change them. Human Torch's being white is not a defining aspect of his character. He could be black, so anybody who's saying, but it was like that in the comics in the 60s, you're an idiot. Just move on. And you probably are racist. You just don't know you are.
I have no problem with them changing the race of a character as long as it doesn't mess up their backstory. Like when they changed Nick Fury from white to black. That was fine. It didn't matter because it had nothing to do with his backstory.
Right.
But if they did that with a character like
Thor.
Yeah. It would make it wouldn't make any sense.
Says the guy who just cast a Hawaiian as Thor.
Yeah, but if you're that big and scary, you get a pass.
It's okay, I was an ass there and led you into that. You can hit me later.
If they casted a black guy as Thor, it wouldn't make any sense because it's like, these guys are Norse gods.
You really have to have a specific...
You really can't do that.
So we're dyeing Jason Momoa's hair blonde. He's gonna look so weird. He's gonna look like, I don't know.
Now, if you wanted to...
bad guys from Meteor Man.
wanted to make Iron Man black, that's fine.
Care, yeah.
His race has nothing to do with his backstory. That's totally okay.
There you go. Iron Man can be completely black. I don't care.
Yeah.
If in the Anthony Stark can totally be black, okay? It's the same thing along the lines of gender, okay? You can make Bryce Wayne, and she's just a kick-ass chick.
Yeah.
I don't care about that casting decision. Because he doesn't have to be
He doesn't need to be a man. But there's certain things in the backstory that you just can't change. Like...
Yeah, so let's see. We have one last thing we want to cover in this. And that is who has been casting better. Marvel or DC?
Oh.
Yeah, loaded question there. Who's doing it better?
See, the thing there is, and this is gonna work for them and work against them at the same time, is obviously at first you want to say Marvel because Marvel just has more characters that they've casted.
Right.
But that's also more fuck-ups.
Right.
At the same time, where DC has only done, like, they haven't put out all that many movies.
Mm-hmm.
But for the most part, their casting has been pretty good. I have, some small complaints. Like, I've said this to you a bunch of times.
Yeah.
Superman's hair in the Man of Steel movie. It just bugs me. I don't know why. His hair just looks silly.
It does look a little bit silly. Henry Cavill, I don't think anybody since... Oh my god, I can't believe I'm about to say this. I'm not even married to these movies, by the way, to the 70s Superman movies. But Christopher Reeve was a really good Superman. As far as we're talking about portraying Silver and Golden Age Superman, he really did strike a good balance. Henry Cavill and Brandon Routh have had issues. Routh had no range. Henry Cavill, though, I think he has good range. I think it's just that Zack Snyder has been directing him to be a little bit like he was on Valium.
I think one problem is Superman is one of those characters that just... I don't think he transfers well from page
to film
because he's supposed to be perfect.
Right, and everybody envisions that differently.
He is 6 foot fuck.
Yeah, he is.
let's just throw that out there.
Yeah.
He's as broad as a door.
Yeah.
But he's also supposed to be so immensely handsome and charming and polite.
Yeah.
But then somehow comes off as a wimp and then is Superman when he's in the costume.
These are impossible standards for any human
it's
being.
impossible to get someone to actually be able to put all of those characteristics into a real person and put them on screen. You can't do it.
I agree. I think that's one of the biggest problems that they've had so far, and I think directors are a little bit at a loss when it comes to directing a actor to behave in that way.
Yeah.
How was Brandon Routh, who had really just been a newcomer, supposed to fill the role of the Superman, especially a Superman who was a deadbeat dad? He had so much to work with there. He didn't quite know. He was like, am I, affected by this at all? Well, Brandon Routh did commit, the worst sin because he had that one line after he got beat up and the guys put their hands over him, and he just screams out, "You can't do this, I'm Superman!" And I'm just like, that's up there with Ray Fiennes, yeah, with Voldemort. It's just it's the moment where you just gave up on a portrayal.
I can touch you
now. So that's been a big thing there. I guess DC has a lot of archetypes as opposed to actual human characters that can really be given characteristics that an actor can portray. Marvel has a lot more human characters.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of writing, I am neither a DC nor a Marvel man. Okay, I'm saying that right now. For anybody out there who is listening to this and going, fucking Marvel fanboy, man. Nope, I started DC. Good job with that, Skippy.
I feel exactly the same, except I started with Marvel, but now when I buy comics, they're normally DC.
I usually follow specific writers. DC right now has the better writers.
Right.
But that's our opinions, by the way. I think that so far you're probably correct. Marvel has had more hits, and it definitely has a formula. So casting usually doesn't matter all that much. Batista really wasn't all that great as Drax. He had some good lines, but recast him in the next movie and you're not going to notice.
Exactly. The character is fun, and plus, Guardians in the Galaxy was a real lightning in the bottle thing, because who really cared about Guardians of the Galaxy? But then the movie came out, and it was just a lot of fun.
Yeah.
But before that movie came out, nobody really knew about them. You knew that Rocket Raccoon was in Marvel vs. Capcom.
Yes.
But that was about it.
And then he was on that one cartoon that plays on Disney XD.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there for an episode.
I was a huge Marvel fan growing up, and I'm gonna be honest,
I knew nothing.
I'm sure that I saw Star-Lord at one point or another, but it was kind of I just dismissed him.
He's just a dude in a gas mask with a trench coat.
Who is this guy?
Chris Pratt probably isn't playing an incredibly accurate portrayal of him. I don't know too much about the Guardians.
Nobody really does.
Except for big, the true uber nerd comic nerds. But I'm not really just a comic nerd. I like to do a lot of different things. I don't spend any particular amount of time with one aspect of nerd culture, so I'm all over the place. So I don't know who the Guardians really are.
Yeah.
I wiki things. I know Groot is some ancient alien being, secretly, but everybody just hears I'm Groot. So Vin Diesel was great for that, by the way. Vin Diesel was perfect for saying I am Groot.
And know what? You can put him in as someone else, and it would be okay.
If in the next movie Robert Downey Jr. was just reading all of Groot's lines, you probably wouldn't notice.
That would be okay.
There would be justification. He's a new Groot. I'm Groot. I'll read for you, Disney. Let's see. Yeah, I'll give it that. I think the DC overall has been doing the better job at finding really unique casting choices. I'm just going to point to the Dark Knight trilogy. Dark Knight trilogy, think of all those unique choices where it's just like, okay, we have Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon. Wouldn't have thought of that before, but wow, okay, muttering aside, he's really great at this.
Right.
Michael Caine as Alfred. I didn't think that anybody could replace the previous actor in the old movies from the 90s and 80s, but there we go. Michael Caine actually pulled that off.
That is a really big thing with the Dark Knight trilogy. It was almost the best actors for the roles that you would have never thought of.
Right, and that's pretty much what they've been going on. Now, I know you and I have been on, like, differing opinions of Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman, but that is another example, and we won't really be able to know whether my assertion that she's not a good choice or your assertion that she will be a good choice is going to be correct.
We'll find out in 5 months.
We are going to find out in 5 months. It's actually very soon. I do think that we can both agree that Jason Momoa will probably be a kick-ass Aquaman.
I can't wait.
Oh, man. The only thing is, I imagine he's going to beat Superman's ass.
That will have to be a debate for another time.
I know in the comics he can't, but it's Jason Momoa. Come on.
Yeah, he's pretty scary.
He will kill the men in the blue tights. I think we should probably close out around here because we've probably been going on about this for about an hour. If you have any questions, please go ahead and email us at joeandantshareapint@gmail.com or follow us on Twitter at joeandant. Share a pint. I was a little awkward in that, but please share us on Twitter. Follow us on Twitter. You know what? I don't know how Twitter works, okay? So just press the plus sign next to @joeandantShareAPint.
And if you guys have any questions, like he said, feel free to email us. Please, nothing offensive, because I just don't feel like being ridiculed on the internet tonight.
Exactly. And by all means, we're open guys. Please just... You can also subscribe to us on Stitcher and hopefully very soon on iTunes if you want to keep up with our feed from week to week. Thank you, everybody, and have a wonderful night.